paradrama tales.
That night, I ordered a simple Sprite. No alcohol, just a soda, because of the medicine I was taking. But minutes turned into hours and it never came. Then, to my surprise, I was charged for it on the bill. It wasn't just a drink, it was a feeling of being ignored and disrespected. That night started as a simple plan, a group of friends coming together to lift up one of our own after a tough breakup. My friend was feeling down, so the boys decided a night out at the club would do the trick. When I arrived, the energy was lively. Laughter filled the air, and the mood was upbeat despite the reason we were there. Everyone had grabbed a spot around a big table, drinks flowing freely, and hors d'oeuvres on the way. I was happy to be there, ready to support my friend and enjoy the evening. But I had one small challenge. I'm on medication that forbids alcohol, so I couldn't partake like the rest. When the waitress came over to take my order, I asked for a Sprite. Simple, non-alcoholic, harmless. But little did I know that small request would start a series of events that left me feeling sidelined. Being the only one not drinking, I felt a bit out of sync with the group, but I didn't mind. I knew the night was about my friend, not me. I sat back watching the laughter and camaraderie content just to be part of the moment. My friends were having a good time, sharing stories, clinking glasses, and trying to forget the rough patch my friend was going through. I cheered along, raised my imaginary glass, and smiled, knowing my presence mattered, even if I wasn't drinking. But amid all the fun, a quiet tension was building for me. The waitress took their orders, promptly bringing round after round of drink shots and snacks. Yet my Sprite was nowhere to be seen. Each time she came by, she'd ask if anyone wanted more, engage with the others, but the Sprite still wasn't there. It was as if my presence and my drink were invisible. That night was supposed to be lighthearted, a night to cheer up a friend. But for me, it became a lesson in feeling overlooked. I watched my friends enjoy themselves while I waited and wondered if my small request was too much to ask. The contrast was stark, and it planted the seed of disappointment that would grow as the evening went on. Looking back, that night wasn't just about a missed drink. It was about the subtle ways people can be made to feel invisible, even in a room full of friends. As the night went on, it became clear that the waitress wasn't just forgetful, there was a deeper level of disregard toward me. When I first ordered my Sprite, she gave me an awkward smile, which I brushed off as maybe she was just busy. But as the minutes ticked by without my drink arriving, I began to notice a pattern. She took orders from my friends, swiftly brought round after round of alcohol and shots, and checked in with them frequently. Yet, when it came to me, she seemed to either forget or ignore my request. Each time I reminded her about my Sprite, she would simply nod and walk away without urgency, as if my drink was an afterthought, not a priority. What stung most wasn't just the missing drink, but the way she treated me differently, almost like I didn't belong at the table, or that my needs didn't matter. It's a subtle kind of disrespect that's hard to confront in the moment, especially when you're out with friends and don't want to cause a scene. I noticed she didn't even bother to walk back to the bar when I mentioned my drink again. Instead, she diverted her attention to another customer, chatting and laughing, completely sidelining me. The more I waited, the more invisible I felt in a room full of people who were supposed to be having fun together. It's remarkable how small actions or inactions can make someone feel excluded. Being ignored for a simple request like a non-alcoholic drink made me question my place there. Was it because I wasn't drinking? Was my medication a reason for this silent snub? The question swirled in my head, but no answer came from the waitress's indifferent behavior. That night, her ignorance wasn't just about forgetting a drink. It was about disregarding a person's presence and dignity. It's one thing to make a mistake, but it's another to treat someone as though they're less important or less worthy of attention. This experience opened my eyes to how discrimination can show up in everyday situations, quietly, casually, but painfully. It wasn't loud or aggressive, but it was there, clear as day. And it hurt more than I expected. As the minutes stretched into what felt like an eternity, I found myself caught in an uncomfortable waiting game. My friends were deep into their conversations, laughter ringing out across the table, glasses clinking with each new round the waitress delivered. Yet my Sprite was nowhere to be seen. Every time I glanced toward the waitress, hoping she would bring my drink, she was busy attending to someone else, checking on the others, laughing with familiar faces, but never once hurrying back to me. I reminded her again politely a couple of times. Each time she nodded without eye contact, mumbling a vague, "I'll bring it soon," before turning away. But soon never came. The wait was frustrating, and honestly a bit humiliating. It wasn't just about the drink anymore, it was the feeling of being overlooked in a group where everyone else's needs seemed to matter more. I sat there feeling invisible in a crowded room, the only one left waiting for something as simple as a soda. I wondered if it was because I wasn't drinking alcohol that I was being ignored. Was it too much to ask for a small, non-alcoholic beverage? The thoughts spiraled quietly in my mind, but no answer came. As the clock ticked on, I realized this wasn't just about service, it was about respect. The time I spent waiting was time I could have been enjoying the night feeling included and cared for. Instead, I was caught in a cycle of waiting and hoping a spectator to my own experience. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to get up and head to the bar myself. It was awkward, yes, leaving my friends to fetch my own drink, but it felt necessary. I paid for my Sprite, and a water took a deep breath and returned to the table. It was a small victory, but it also highlighted how much I had been ignored. That night taught me that sometimes when you're not being seen or heard, you have to advocate for yourself, even if it feels uncomfortable, because your needs, no matter how small they seem to others, matter. And waiting endlessly for a simple drink is a quiet form of dismissal no one should have to endure. After waiting and waiting with no sign of my Sprite, I finally reached my limit. The night was supposed to be about supporting my friend and enjoying time with everyone, but instead I was left feeling invisible and ignored. So I made a choice. I was going to take matters into my own hands. Getting up from the table wasn't easy. There was a moment of hesitation, the awkwardness of leaving my friends to fetch my own drink, especially in a crowded club where everyone seemed wrapped up in their own world. But deep down, I knew I deserved better. I deserved to be seen, to be respected, and to have my simple request honored. At the bar, I ordered my Sprite and a water. I paid for them myself, and even left a tip, wanting to do what was right despite the situation. Holding those drinks in my hands felt like reclaiming a small piece of dignity that had been slipping away throughout the evening. When I returned to the table, my friends were still chatting, unaware of the silent battle I'd just fought. I placed the drinks down, feeling a mix of relief and frustration. I was glad to have the drinks, but also disheartened that it had come to this, that I had to fend for myself just to be treated fairly. This moment made me realize how often we tolerate subtle disrespect, simply because we don't want to make waves. We stay quiet when our needs aren't met, hoping someone else will notice or step in. But sometimes no one will, and we have to speak up for ourselves. Taking matters into my own hands was empowering. It reminded me that I have a voice and the right to advocate for my own well-being. Even in small ways, standing up for yourself sends a powerful message that you won't accept being sidelined or ignored. That night, getting my own drink was more than just quenching my thirst. It was a small act of self-respect and a refusal to be invisible. It taught me that sometimes when others don't see your value, you have to show it to yourself first. And that lesson is worth far more than any Sprite. As the night drew to a close and we prepared to settle the bill, I thought the worst was behind me. I had gotten my drink even if I had to get it myself, and was ready to enjoy the rest of the evening without further issues. But then came the check, the moment when the frustration I'd been holding in boiled over. The waitress handed me the bill, and to my disbelief, there it was, a charge for the very Sprite I never received from her. I looked at the line item, then back at her, confused and upset. "I never got this Sprite," I told her calmly. She shrugged and said something about the bar transferring it to her tab. I explained, "No, I paid the bar directly." There was no apology, no acknowledgement of her oversight, just a dismissive, "Okay," as she took the check away. That moment felt like a punch to the gut. Not only had she ignored me all night, but now she was charging me for something I hadn't even gotten from her. It wasn't about the money, it was about the principle. It was about being treated fairly and with respect. What hurt even more was the realization that her attitude wasn't just a mistake. It was a subtle way of telling me I didn't matter. If someone can charge you for a service they didn't provide, what else might they overlook or dismiss? When I shared the experience with my friends, they were just as upset as I was. They saw the injustice and decided to stand with me, not by causing a scene, but by leaving no tip and writing a pointed note on the checks. "You should have brought my friend a Sprite." It was their quiet way of showing support and calling out unfair treatment. But even then I struggled with the decision. I know how much servers rely on tips, how important that income is for their livelihoods. I didn't want to punish the waitress financially. I wanted to hold her accountable. It's a tough line to walk, seeking justice without causing harm to someone else's means of living. That night, the check became more than just a piece of paper. It was a symbol of how small injustices accumulate and how important it is to stand up for oneself. It reminded me that fairness isn't just about money. It's about dignity, recognition, and the basic respect everyone deserves. When my friends realized what had happened, their reaction surprised and moved me deeply. At first, I hesitated to even bring it up. I didn't want to seem overly sensitive or dramatic. After all, it was just a Sprite right. But when they saw my expression and asked what was wrong, I told them quietly about the waitress charging me for something she had never delivered. Immediately, the mood at our table shifted. The smiles and casual banter dimmed, replaced by expressions of genuine concern. One friend shook his head in disbelief. Another voiced clear frustration. And soon, they all echoed a shared sentiment of disappointment. To them, it wasn't about a drink, it was about basic respect and fairness. Without hesitation, they decided as a group how they would respond. Each of them paid their individual tabs, but deliberately chose not to leave a tip. On each check, they left a clear and direct message. You should have brought my friend a Sprite. In that small yet powerful gesture, they made it known that my experience mattered, and they weren't willing to silently accept unfair treatment. While their solidarity touched me, it also made me uncomfortable. I know how heavily servers depend on tips to support themselves. I didn't want one negative interaction to unfairly penalize someone's income. Yet I understood why my friends felt compelled to act. They saw an injustice, and standing up for me was their immediate instinct. In a way, their reaction highlighted a complicated truth. Sometimes when people experience subtle discrimination or disrespect, it can be challenging to stand up for themselves. But when friends witness such moments and speak up, it sends a powerful message. You're not alone, and your feelings are valid. Later, as we walked out of the club together, they reassured me I wasn't wrong for feeling slighted. One friend placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder and said firmly, "Never let someone make you feel invisible. You deserved better." Their collective support filled me with a profound sense of gratitude. It reminded me that true friendship isn't just about sharing happy times, it's also about standing with each other when things aren't right. That night, through their actions, my friends reinforced an important lesson. Sometimes the strongest voice against unfairness isn't your own. It's the chorus of those who care about you, united in the belief that everyone deserves respect. After the incident, I couldn't stop thinking about tipping. On one hand, the waitress clearly disrespected and ignored me. On the other, tipping is more than just rewarding good service. It's an integral part of someone's income and livelihood. It's complicated, and that complexity stuck with me long after that night. In America, tipping isn't simply a bonus. It's a significant part of how servers, bartenders, and many others make their living. They rely heavily on tips because their base wages are often very low, something many customers forget when deciding whether or not to tip. I understood this reality, and it's why I initially felt uncomfortable when my friends decided collectively not to tip. I worried we were punishing someone too harshly for a mistake, even if it felt justified at the time. Yet there's also an expectation of respect and fairness that comes with tipping. It's supposed to be a recognition of the service provided. That night, the service I received felt like the opposite, being forgotten, overlooked, and even wrongly charged. So the tension between fairness and economic responsibility became very clear to me. I started thinking about all the servers who genuinely care and put effort into making their customers feel welcomed. Those who work tirelessly juggling numerous tables, orders, and expectations, all while depending on customers' generosity. Was it fair to punish someone financially for a momentary lapse? Or was this situation different because of the deliberate neglect? These thoughts didn't leave me with easy answers. Instead, they highlighted a bigger issue about tipping culture, how fragile and subjective it is. When servers depend almost entirely on tips, it places enormous power and responsibility in customers' hands. It means that servers can have their earnings dramatically impacted by factors completely beyond their control, including a customer's mood biases or even simple misunderstandings. The situation at the club made me reflect deeply on what fairness truly means. While my friend's decision to withhold tips made a clear statement about the disrespect I experienced, it also made me question if there was a better way, one that could address poor treatment without undermining someone's livelihood. Ultimately, that night showed me the uncomfortable intersection between principles and reality. It's a reminder that our actions, no matter how justified, have consequences. And while standing up for oneself is critical, it's equally important to recognize the broader economic realities that shape these interactions. Fairness isn't always clear-cut, but navigating it thoughtfully with awareness and empathy makes all the difference. Reflecting further on that evening, I realized the issue ran deeper than just poor service or an overlooked soda. It was about something subtler, yet far more troubling: how easily we can discriminate against someone based on what they choose or need not to do. My decision not to drink alcohol wasn't a choice rooted in morality or preference, it was medical necessity. Yet that simple fact seemed to mark me as less worthy of attention. Sitting there at the club, surrounded by friends with glasses full of beer cocktails and shots, I suddenly felt like an outsider. It wasn't my friends' fault they fully respected my choice, but the waitress's attitude reflected a quiet judgment that hurt more deeply than I anticipated. Her neglect suggested that because I wasn't participating in the expected activity drinking, I was less valuable, less interesting, and easier to dismiss. This subtle discrimination doesn't always show up in obvious ways. It's not always loud or openly hostile. Sometimes it's as quiet as being overlooked, as passive as being repeatedly forgotten, or as casual as receiving a dismissive nod without eye contact. These tiny gestures can communicate volumes, often making people feel small and unwelcome without a single harsh word ever spoken. It made me think about others who might experience similar subtle forms of exclusion, whether for medical reasons, personal choices, or cultural differences. How often do we unknowingly perpetuate these small acts of dismissal? How often do people quietly endure them, believing it's better not to make waves? Looking back, I recognized how easy it is to underestimate the emotional impact of feeling invisible. It wasn't just about the Sprite. It was the silent, persistent message that my presence was somehow less meaningful because I wasn't conforming to everyone else's behavior. This feeling wasn't new. Many people experience it daily, in various ways quietly swallowing their frustration, because it feels too trivial or awkward to address. But acknowledging subtle discrimination matters. Calling it out even quietly matters. When we let these moments pass unaddressed, we risk normalizing exclusion and disrespect, no matter how small the gesture. It's crucial to remind ourselves and others that respect isn't conditional. It shouldn't depend on whether someone drinks alcohol, eats certain foods, or fits neatly into expected norms. That night taught me a valuable lesson about seeing beyond surface interactions. It taught me that discrimination doesn't always shout, it whispers. And being aware of these whispers can empower us to recognize challenge and ultimately change how we treat one another, ensuring everyone feels seen, valued, and respected. In the end, it wasn't just about a Sprite. It was about respect, simple basic respect, for another person's choices and circumstances. That night being overlooked taught me how deeply we crave acknowledgement, especially in moments when we're quietly vulnerable. Respect isn't something earned by conforming to expectations or following social norms. It's owed to every person simply because they're human. My experience revealed how easily we dismiss each other's feelings and needs without realizing it. True kindness isn't only in grand gestures, it lives in recognizing the small moments when we can show someone that they matter. Everyone deserves to be seen, heard, and valued, even if they're not participating in the way we expect. If you've ever felt invisible or dismissed, remember you're not alone, and you have every right to gently yet firmly speak up. Your experiences matter, your choices matter, and standing up for yourself, even over something seemingly minor, matters deeply. Today I encourage you to look around and notice the small ways people are often overlooked. Offer respect generously even, and especially, to those who quietly navigate the world differently than others. Let's commit to making spaces inclusive, where no one ever feels ignored or forgotten again. Thank you for hearing my story. If this resonated with you, please share your experiences in the comments below. Subscribe and join me in creating a world where respect goes beyond simply bringing someone a drink. It's about seeing and valuing every person for exactly who they are.